everybody. Welcome to Getting Inside the Right Male Mind. I'm Lisa Shield.
And I'm Benjamin Shield.
And it is wonderful to see you here today. So we are extremely excited, right, babe, to talk about ghosting. Because this is probably one of the most insidious things that happens in dating and in relationships. You know, it's not just in dating. Sometimes someone will ghost after dating someone or being in a relationship for a year or more. I've spoken to women on the phone, babe, where the guys have literally ghosted after 3 years.
Oh my.
Can you imagine just ending a relationship like that and not even calling a woman, just disappearing, cutting her off after so many years?
My Lord.
Yeah, it's just unthinkable. Unthinkable. I mean, maybe something was awful. Maybe the relationship was dying a slow death. But the women I speak to, they feel like the guy just ghosted, like there was no real end to the relationship. I know as a woman, it does feel horrible when you're even just communicating with a man, right? You're just communicating and you feel like it's going well, and then poof, he's gone.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
Well, it can be so many things, but tantamount is the lack of maturity and being a man. Mm-hmm. I think some men ghost because they may sense that the woman is not a match, and they just may not have the courtesy or feel the need to bring closure. And it could be, after 2 or 3 or 4 dates, and the woman is starting to feel a connection. There may have been some even mild intimacy, and he just feels like on to the next, or he just found someone else, or he was dating someone concurrently, and just didn't want to be bothered.
Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing that a lot of men are concerned that if they did say something, it would lead to processing.
Right. If a man, if a man were to tell a woman that he's had been dating that I don't think we're a match, and I wish you the best, she may come back and say, well, why aren't we a match?
Right.
And for some things there just aren't vocabulary for, and even if there were vocabulary, you may not want to say it. Mm-hmm. Like, well, I didn't like this, or I didn't like the way you chewed your food, or I feel I could do better, all those things. So, if a man does want to bring closure, it may not actually be closure. Mm-hmm. It may open up an uncomfortable door.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've also read is that a lot of men don't want to feel like they've disappointed a woman. They don't want to make her disappointed, and they don't like to see the look of disappointment. It makes them feel bad to do that, and it feels emasculating for them, even though they may not want to see her again, and they may have very legitimate reasons. There's also just that feeling of letting a woman down that a lot of men try to avoid.
Yeah. And especially with online dating, before online dating, when people met each other in the community, the church or clubs or wherever it may be, social events, parties, they actually had to bring closure more. But with the internet, there's a sense of anonymity. Mm-hmm. And particularly in large cities, the sense of anonymity where you could do anything or not do anything and, get away with it.
Yeah, I'm sure men ghosted throughout history.
Right.
I don't think it just started happening with the internet, but I think that there may have been people were in closer proximity, they were in each other's social circles, and so it was probably something that had to be cleaned up or at least at some point they were going to run into each other, and there was going to be that moment of reckoning where they had to.
Oh, if they went to the same church, if they went to the same clubs, social events, parties, mutual friends.
Yeah, in those ways. But even then, I think a lot of times guys would just, or people would just leave it until they actually happened to run into each other. But then they would dread it.
Yeah.
They would be like, "Oh my God, how am I going to feel when I see him?" Right. And either two people would awkwardly ignore each other, or they'd have enough alcohol at a party or something to corner one or the other. But anyway, getting back to ghosting.
Yeah, and I think another reason for ghosting is, for a man, is that a man may, after 3 or 4 or more dates, feel that things are heading towards exclusivity, and he may not want it. It may just, he may want it. Part of him may want it, but part of him may be terrified, or part of him may feel, well, I've really enjoyed meeting this person, and we've had nice dates and nice conversations, maybe a little physical intimacy, but this isn't the person I'm going to grow old with. And, how do I end it? Particularly now that we've been a little bit physical, we've shared some, intimate stories of our past and our thoughts, and they just don't have the courage to say, look, I think you're a wonderful person. I've really enjoyed our time together. It's clear to me that we're not a match, and I wish you the very best on your dating journey.
Yeah, it's really, really, really tough.
Yeah.
It's tough, too. We encourage the women who go through our 12-week coaching program to always end things kindly and at least send a text or something that says, what you just said.
Yeah. We often encourage people, men and women, not to leave dead bodies in their path. And not to create a dating life where you're apprehensive going into a restaurant that you may see someone that you've ghosted. But if there's a conclusion, there's at least an understanding and an eventual forgiveness, or the pain may go away, and you're able to see the person face to face. But without that closure, there's something festering, that what's wrong with me? Why did he stop? Things were going so good. I don't understand it. And the person who's been ghosted will never have that resolution, unless there's closure, ever.
Well, and we even encourage the women in our course to actually send a message if a man has ghosted her, and just say, clearly we're not a match, and I haven't heard from you in some days or some weeks. And I just wanted to say I enjoyed meeting you and I wish you the best. And I also believe that it's not just up to the man to close the loop. A man could also turn around and say, you could have always sent me a message. Unless she had reached out to him and he hadn't responded to her last correspondence. But if two people are both having a relationship or exploring the possibility of a relationship, it's also not just up to the man to close the loop. Women have just as much right to do that, and power. And I think we give a lot of our power away to men and then set ourselves up as victims when we do that.
Well, I love the idea of a woman reaching out, because in the dating journey, a man could feel rejection. Like there could have been on their last date that something he did wrong, or sense that he wasn't the ideal man for her. And just feel rejection and just stop, because it's too uncomfortable for him to continue. So if a woman reaches out and a man realizes that it wasn't rejection and that she would really like to continue seeing him, that's great.
And we've also had instances where there were misunderstandings. And where the men said, no, I thought that you weren't interested. And so, they were feeling like something had misfired in the, in the dating, and that the woman wasn't interested. I know one of the biggest mistakes I made when I was dating was that I never gave men enough indication that I really liked them and that I wanted to see them again. I could be very reserved. I could be very withdrawn, up in my head, overthinking things, wanting to see, do I like him? Don't I like him? And I think many times men didn't ask me out on second dates, not because they weren't interested. They would have never asked me out the first time if they hadn't been, but there was no opening. And so I could have sat there and made up a story and said, oh, I just kept getting ghosted, one guy after another. But I really do think our power in dating and in manifesting, the love that we want really lies in looking at what we're doing or not doing and being able to ask ourselves, was there anything I might have done to turn this person off or to not give him enough of a sign that I was interested in seeing him again? And a lot of what we refer to as ghosting, might be something other than that as well.
Right. And I, who have always felt that I was considerate and honorable, when I think of all the people that I've dated, over all these years, and I try to remember how it ended, a lot of them I can't remember how it ended. It just, through attrition, I just stopped calling, or I just stopped writing. And
Wow.
yeah. And, if you asked me if I had ever ghosted anyone, I would say, before thinking about it, I would say no.
Yeah.
It's a terrible thing to do. It's a horrible thing to do. Looking back, have I ever done it? Absolutely. And would it have made a difference if the woman wrote a note, a kind note, or a phone call, and but particularly a note, an email, or, and I could say, oh my goodness, I realize that I haven't called, and I could give a reason, things were, it was becoming clear that we weren't a match, or I found someone different, just anything, but to ease the unresolved turmoil
Yeah.
for the woman.
Yeah, I think if I were going to give the women listening any encouragement, I would say if you feel that something is incomplete, whether it's from your end or his end, and even if you sent the last message and he didn't respond, you can send a text. That is the beauty of texting, is you don't have to talk to someone face to face. It mitigates all the, the butterflies and the anxiety, what's he going to say or whatever. And you can just write a simple message that says, I never heard back from you, and clearly we're not a match, but I just wanted to say thank you. It was lovely meeting you, and I wish you all the best in your journey. Whatever, just something to close the loop. And at least, when I did this, I felt that at least he knew that I knew that it was done,
Right.
and it made it complete for me, so that there wasn't like something open-ended, or if there was a maybe, like maybe he wanted to contact me, maybe he did want to reach out and things had gotten in the way or too much time had gone by. A lot of times, I'll tell you, I know this for certain, many, many, many times men do not contact women because They know that a lot of time has gone by since their last interaction, and they are so worried that she's going to read them the riot act or they're going to get some kind of attitude from her. Well, why haven't you, why didn't you reach out? And, it's so easy to just send a text. Like, it's not that hard just to, send me a text to say, hey, I'm thinking of you. And that guy is going to feel horrible. And so very often they avoid reaching out, even though they may want to. And if you give them just a little bit of an opening that lets them know that you're friend and not foe, if there was any kind of misunderstanding, right?
Yeah.
Any kind of misunderstanding, it just opens up that door for that man to come back and say, you know what? You've been on my mind. I've been meaning to reach out to you. Would you like to have dinner, Saturday night?
Yeah. And even being more honest, that the more time that went by, the worse I felt about not contacting you, and it became more and more difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it opens a doorway, and if nothing else, you get closure. You get closure. And so often we have had the women in our program come on calls and say, oh my God, he wrote me the nicest message and I just feel so good. I feel complete. And the women in our program, by doing this, by reaching out, they start to feel less anxiety and like they have more agency in the dating process, because they're not just sitting there waiting for the men to do everything and make all the moves.
Yeah.
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 Honey, I can't imagine, one other thing that I've done where a lot of women will say to me, oh, well, the guys keep ghosting me, whatever. And I will say to them, I want you to go back through your inbox and actually look at the messages there. And I want you to see how many threads you have where they sent the last correspondence and you didn't answer them. Whatever it was, whatever happened, we can sit there and say, oh, well, I did, I have never ghosted. Women ghost too. We're just as guilty of it as men are. We do it all the time.
Yeah. And ghosting could not only be in the dating process, but even before the first date. As you say, with the texting back and forth, and if someone stops responding, that's essentially ghosting, and it's left incomplete. And with the internet, people are often in communication with so many people that it's perhaps not as painful if someone were, focused on one person. But sometimes people are focused on one person. They really see a potential, and the texting and the emails and the maybe even Zoom calls have become more intimate. There's been more sharing, more connection.
Yeah. And we never, ever know what's going on the other side. There could be a person who wonders why you stopped writing, why you dropped the ball, and it happens on both sides. One other thing I want to talk about, which I think is so important with this subject, there are so many little things that men and women do to turn each other off. Little things that women are looking for, right? That we have a whole list of things, and women, ladies, that list of all the little annoying things a man may do that would make you never want to see him again. And it can be something as simple as, not opening a door for you, or not paying for your valet parking, or, not walking to you to your car after a date. I mean,
not asking as many questions as one would want.
Yeah, not asking enough questions, and you assuming that he's just not interested in getting to know you. There are so many rules that we have and turnoffs that we just decide after a single date that we don't want to see a guy again. Well, here's the bad news. that guy sitting across the table from you, he's got a list of things that he's looking for and he's listening for, just like you do. And those turnoffs are going to make him he's going to be just as likely never to call you again because of any one of the things on his list that you don't know you're doing. Babe, what would be some of those things where you would look at, where you would go on a date with a woman and she may do something and you would say, nope.
Well, I think negativity, that would be one, because, who wants to be around that?
Yep.
What I would refer to as narcissism, at least on that particular date. It may not be a narcissistic person, but just talking about herself and going on and on and on. And it wasn't really a dialogue, but listening to a monologue and sitting there being a professional listener. It could be how she talks about other people.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, about her ex and other people in her lives, gossiping. A lot of women gossip and don't even realize it.
Yeah.
Or talking about superficial things and people that you don't know, telling stories like your mom used to do about people who you don't even know or whose lives that weren't important to you, but not considering or talking at you. Right? Talking at you, anger.
Lecturing.
Yeah. Lecturing, a certain tone in her voice that wasn't kind or got shrill if she was, making a point or
even an educational lecture, like trying to teach someone, and which isn't so much what a date is about.
Yeah.
A date is more about getting to know each other rather than to acquiring, interesting information.
Yeah, or seeming depressed or flat, like
right. What we would call prosody, the tonation, the variation of tone in the voice is so important. So if someone is just like has a monotone, it's just like, oh my gosh, you just extrapolate what that would be like 15 years from now.
Yeah.
Boring.
Yep. So there's so many things. Talking too much about business. Just being caught up in business and being competitive. I mean, there's a lot of things that can come up that would just be automatic turnoffs that wouldn't engage a man in a playful, fun, sort of masculine, feminine, dynamic that would make a man think, wow, I really want to call her again.
Yeah. And sometimes a woman would say, I can't believe it because our last date was so great. And a guy might be feeling, well, the last date was so great, it was complete in itself. We ended on a high note. And which is the wrong thinking. But, that he would may think that, well, the last date was perfect. We had a great talk, we had a great dinner, we went for a walk and all that. And I'm not going to leave her disappointed because it ended on a high note, which is nonsensical, but some guys feel that way.
Like they'll drag out the date. They know they don't want to see the woman again, but they're trying to be nice to make it a nice date, but they know they're never going to call her again.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I never thought about that. So that's why sometimes they have these 3-hour dates.
Yeah, and then never hear from
And then, yeah. Oh my gosh.
But I think one of the big reasons men ghost is that after 3 or 4 or whatever number of dates, if they feel as if they're heading into exclusivity and the woman is beginning to expect more and more, it will be like a train that to a man, it's like a train that slowly builds up speed. And if you don't end it soon enough, the only way to stop it once it's, is through, like a horrible accident, carnage, twisted metal, dead bodies, on the side of the tracks. And so, I mean, that's what goes on in a man's mind. Like, if I don't end this now, or if I don't just walk away from it now, the next day she's going to expect more and more, and she's going to be talking about, spending a vacation or the holidays together, her family, or, whatever it may be. So he bails. Mm-hmm. And instead of communicating, saying that, I'm really enjoying your company. I want to take this slow. I'm not ready for a monogamous relationship because I'm encouraged to date a couple other, people. My dating coach, had recommended that I date about 3 people, or I'm in communication with 3 people at a time. And, I'm just not ready to be kind of pulled into this exclusive relationship. So they may just bail.
Well, and it does seem often, when we're talking about secure people, not anxious or avoidant, but when we're talking about secure people, it does seem even still that women and men have different timelines.
Yeah.
I mean, men may have a quick timeline for sex, but women have a quick timeline for commitment. And it's interesting how you find a balance with those. We found such an incredible balance, you and me.
Yeah.
I don't know, we were so on the same page, and we were moving at the same pace.
Yeah. And we communicated that verbally.
And early on.
And early on, and with our actions. We showed up, we didn't overcommit. We, talked about waiting to, be intimate. And so there was no guessing. There's no, and, that would have been time if someone was looking for something the other person didn't feel that they could provide, would be the time to share that.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's so beautiful in our program when we do see 2 people who meet and enter into this whole thing together, consciously communicating every step of the way, and talking about how much they both are enjoying each other, and also at the same time wanting to intentionally slow things down so that it doesn't become a train wreck, like you said, and so that it can build gradual momentum. But when it does, and when the women seem to approach it the way we did, it just is such a beautiful dance. And the result is 2 people on the same page, both people feeling gratified, and both people having the time and space to make sure that it's really what they each want.
Yeah, it builds trust and safety, and it's a template for the rest of the relationship.
It is.
Because if they know that I could say something that you may not want to hear, we could talk about it in a loving, gracious way, and it's not going to, be an explosion.
Yeah, if I had one great wish for women, it would be that they slow down the commitment, that rushing to think that this is my future husband and planning the wedding, before they've even gone on the 5th date and projecting into the future. I think that it's fine to really look at a relationship 6 weeks or 2 months out and start to really ask some deeper questions. But we want it so quickly. We get so, the moment we start to like somebody, even grown women who are past childbearing years, we get so anxious and we want to have that commitment so quickly. I think it does, men know that. And I think there's a lot of ghosting that happens as a result of it.
And even when there's the beginning of a commitment, people are dating, they've become exclusive. They've taken their profiles down, and a man can pick up on anxiety. And so, if he's working hard, he's spending a couple nights a week with her because that's all he has right now. And if she finds out that he's got an extra evening available and doesn't spend it with her, he just may need time and space. But a man can pick up on anxiety and realize that, oh my gosh, my world is going to become smaller, not larger, because I'm going to have all these expectations. I won't be having before we met, I had all this time and space because I needed it, and I'll no longer have that. So, yeah.
I know we entered into one of the things that's so lovely, even being together for 20 years, we respect each other's need for space to such an incredible extent that we carve out time to be together. But at the same time, if you need a night alone, or if I need a night with girlfriends or whatever, we just dance. I mean, it's this beautiful dance that we do where we both feel, I think, so free that we have so much room and space in the relationship, but we're never crowding each other or getting upset with one another if, you're not feeling up to doing something or you need a night by yourself, we just give each other room.
Yeah.
And it's so lovely how we spend time together. But then, yesterday my client was in town, and in the last minute I ran in and said, she's staying at an Airbnb, would you like to join me? And if you had said, no, I'm not up to it, I would have said, okay, great, I'm going to go. It'll take me about an hour. I'll come back and we can go have dinner or figure something out. But you said, sure, I'd love to come. And we went together and we had a beautiful evening. It was actually quite fun. So, yeah, but we didn't create, I don't know, we both were ready and we didn't create reasons to push the other one away or for one of us to want to run away.
Right.
It was beautiful. Right. So back to ghosting.
Yeah, and even in a committed relationship, people could stay together and still ghost each other.
Right.
So they could disassociate, or disengage. They could stonewall.
Yeah.
They could have contempt. All of those things within a committed relationship.
Yeah.
One person could have checked out, the same as ghosting.
Absolutely. So, yeah, those would be forms of ghosting within a relationship.
Yeah.
Withdrawal and contempt and withdrawal.
Yeah, stonewalling.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Though I never even thought about that. But people can ghost within the relationship, or having an affair is ghosting. That's pulling away emotionally and leaving the relationship.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Interesting point to end on. Well, honey, anything you want to add?
Well, that I think the solution to all of what we've spoken about is communication.
Right.
We can't expect that, we go on a few dates, this is going to be the person we want to grow old with. We should, we should be expected to put more interest in choosing a partner than we do picking a refrigerator, where we spend hours, just finding the perfect one on the internet. So not everyone is going to be, who we're going to be happily ever after. But as we continue the dating journey with honor and dignity to ourselves and show that to another person. But when we have communication in closing a relationship, in closing communication, in closing a dating journey, it's showing respect to ourselves, and dignity and how we are in the world. And it's not like we're leaving all these kind of sore points that, where you hope you never run into that person. And, there's this lovely closure. And so it's all with communication, whether dating, whether before dating, with texting, whether with dating, and whether in a relationship. It's really staying current, being kind, compassionate.
And they can always close the loop themselves. You don't have to wait for the guy to reach out and close the loop. Just understand we all have limitations. We all are afraid. We all have reasons for doing what we do, But the women, you have a choice. You can close the loop at your end. You don't have to keep walking away feeling like a victim. And when you do that, you sew up loose ends, you tie up loose ends, and you keep your path clear. And that's the most beautiful thing. You get a clear path, and you get to feel good about how you're showing up. You take the high road.
Yeah.
All right, baby. Thank you for doing this.
And thank you for joining us.
Yes, I'm Lisa Shield.
And I'm Benjamin Shield.
This has been Getting Inside the Right Male Mind. Please like and rate this podcast and tell everyone you know about it. And also give a thumbs up on our YouTube channel. That's always helpful as well. You can also send your suggestions to podcast@lisashield.com. We will be doing some future podcasts where we just gather together all of the questions our audience has sent in, and we're going to focus on having some podcasts where we just answer your questions. And also, if you enjoy what Benjamin and I are saying, the most wonderful way to get this solved, to find a guardian of your soul for the rest of your life, like Benjamin, is by going to lisashield.com and clicking the button so that you can watch my free 45-minute presentation. We can really show you in 12 weeks how to find a guardian of your soul. So if you like the presentation and you want to hop on a call with us, we can do that. Stay to the end of the presentation, and that's where you can book your call. So please, you do not have to struggle and suffer and try to figure this out on your own. We can get you there so much faster. I'm Lisa Shield.
And I'm Benjamin Shield.
And please come back and see us again. Bye-bye.